16th, 2005, we were introduced to Danny Fenton's ultimate enemy, himself, Dark Danny, aka Dan Phantom or just Phantom, a corrupted soul who was born from grief, sorrow, and unbridled rage after Danny cheated on his CAT, creating a domino effect that ended with his friends and family getting blown to smithereens at the Nasty Burger. Orphaned with nowhere to go, Danny turned to the only person who could understand him, his rival, Vlad Masters. Desperate to liberate himself from the pain being Danny Phantom has brought him, he begged Vlad to remove his ghost powers from the equation, and Vlad complied, separating Fenton from Phantom. Alright, time out. They aired an episode of the exact same premise the following week, by the way. I don't know why I find that so funny, but it definitely makes this moment feel a little less dark when the concept is played for jokes 7 whole days later. Alright, time in. In an unexpected turn of events, Danny's negative emotions latched onto his ghost half, and the Phantom went rogue, tearing out Vlad's ghost half and merging into one of the most powerful specters the world has ever seen. This was the birth of Dark Danny. Recognizing that he was unwanted by his human half, his first order of business was to take Danny's life, kickstarting his reign of terror over the human realm and the ghost zone. The two worlds fell into complete disarray for the next 10 years, as their protector became their destroyer. Amity Park became the last line of defense and a safe haven for what remained of humanity, until Dark Danny mastered a devastating attack named the Ghostly Whale. As Dark Danny inched closer to wiping out the human race, a ghost by the name of Clockwork, the master of time, finally decided to intervene, believing that the only way to save the future is to kill Danny Phantom before he can become the ultimate enemy. Long story short, time travel shenanigans happen, Danny learns a lesson about cheating, he learns the Ghostly Whale without becoming a supervillain. This design of him in the Phantom suit with his human hair goes insanely hard, and Dark Danny is defeated, banished to a Fenton thermos kept outside of time in Clockwork's domain, where he hasn't been seen since. Until now. Danny Phantom and his evil future counterpart is back in a brand new graphic novel, Danny Phantom, A Glitch in Time. A book that I'm not sure a lot of people know exists? Alright, let me rephrase that. I know the hardcore Danny Phantom fans know it exists, and when I went to pick up my copy, I saw it had a #1 bestseller sticker, so sales are probably pretty solid. But like, do the millions of adults who watched The Ultimate Enemy as a kid know that Dark Danny is back in action? I don't really know. Considering this book is in the kids section of Barnes & Noble, where I forced my friends to pick it up with me so I didn't look like a creep, and the kids who watched the show growing up are now in their 20s and 30s, I imagine most people would never come across it and remain out of the loop. But I did read it, and I need to gush about it. So I'll be discussing the various aspects of the story that pertain to Dark Danny. I also want more graphic novels from this new era of Danny Phantom, so take this as a call to action. If you love Danny Phantom and you loved this special growing up, go buy this novel. Don't deprive yourself of all the wonderful illustrations and the full scope of the story, because I can't and won't show everything in this video. Now before we dig in, I imagine you might have a few questions. Like, why is this a book instead of something animated? Or, is this book canon? First off, I think the reason why we got this story as a graphic novel is pretty simple. Animation costs a buttload of money, and Nickelodeon's pretty selective with what shows get an animated project. Things like Hey Arnold, the Jungle Movie, Rocko's Modern Life's Attic Cling, or the never-ending Fairly OddParents revivals only happen because at one point or another, those shows made Nick a lot of money. Danny Phantom was always popular, but it was never on the level of SpongeBob or Fairly OddParents. And I know, nothing will ever be on the level of SpongeBob. This is just what I think the bigwigs are thinking. Now, Danny Phantom has always had a strong cult following from the moment it ended, so I can see why Nickelodeon opted for a graphic novel instead. And being a graphic novel isn't even a problem, because the art looks great, and its author, Gabrielle Epstein, clearly has a lot of love for the series and wanted to do right by it. That said, I do think there's a chance this story could get animated one day because you may remember a little show by the name of Invader Zim? Its popularity was always in a similar boat as Danny Phantom, and in 2015, the creator collaborated with Nickelodeon and Oni Press to create a comic book series that would run for about 5 years. And the first few issues of that comic were ultimately adapted into the 2019 made-for-streaming movie, Invader Zim, Enter the Florpus. So if this book sells really well, who knows? Maybe one day A Glitch in Time will get the Florpus treatment. I'd love to see that. As for how canon this book is, as far as we know, the creator Butch Hartman had zero involvement with the making of it. But my honest take is, does it really matter? Ignoring the fact that a lot of iconic concepts in Danny Phantom didn't come from Butch's brain, but other talents on the show like Steve Marmol, Nickelodeon is marketing this as an all-new adventure in the Danny Phantom universe. And at the end of the day, being released under the Nickelodeon brand is all this story really needs to be legit. We're not meant to look that deeply into it. Would a sequel to a movie be considered non-canon just because it had a different director than the last one? Star Wars fans, that wasn't your cue to type. Look, as someone who has had to deal with the canon Olympics over in the Dragon Ball fandom, after a while you just want to start enjoying the stories presented to you as they are, instead of trying to pin down a single continuity. Personally, I consider this a canon continuation of the story. If you don't because Butch's name isn't attached, then that's fine. It doesn't really stop this novel from being the banger that it is. And it won't stop more installments from coming out down the line. With all that said, let's talk about the return of Dark Danny. Following the events of Phantom Planet, Danny has been trying to get in the groove of the new normal, living in a world where everyone knows he's Danny Phantom. He's in a fulfilling relationship with Sam, and he's no longer the only ghost hunter in Amity Park. Although the marketable Masters Blasters seemingly disbanded after Vlad was outed as a supervillain, Fenton Works has formed their own team of ghost-fighting teenagers, dubbed the Ghost Patrol. Dash, Quan, and Star are not only Danny's classmates, but now technically his co-workers. I love how Dash reflexively calls Danny a nerd before correcting himself. He's trying so hard to temper his ego after tormenting Danny throughout high school. I'm gonna highlight all the status quo changes later on in the video, so I'll touch on the Ghost Patrol a bit more then. But for now, I gotta say, this is a really smart idea that I wish we could have seen in the show. Even prior to Phantom Planet, it would make sense that Jack and Maddie would want to combat Danny Phantom's presence with their own ghost hunters utilizing their own tech. And there definitely would have been a mean-spirited joke where the reason why they hired Dash over their own son is because he's way more athletic than Danny. As if Danny wasn't dealing with enough growing pains already, time is glitching before his very eyes as he and his friends endure spontaneous reality jumps. The environments around them shift through different eras of human history as the gang shifts through different drip to match. Seriously, a lot of these designs go insanely hard, and I adore how the color palettes of Danny's outfits change to match his human and ghost forms. I also assume these glitches are why they suddenly all have smartphones in this universe, despite taking place in 2007. Let's just roll with that. But why are these glitches in time happening? The gang thinks Clockwork might have an answer, but before they can talk to him, Vlad returns, revealing himself at the Fenton Works ghost portal with a startling revelation. Clockwork is gone. But wait, you may be wondering, how did Vlad survive? He was killed off unceremoniously with a lame joke, getting hit by the disasteroid for laughs. So how did he make it here? Well, our eyes were just playing tricks on us apparently, because bro was watching the disasteroid pass from a distance. Okay? You know what? I always thought him getting Looney Tunes by the disasteroid was a dumb way to go out, so I'll accept this retcon with open arms. Anyways, after destroying his reputation harder than a pop star in the 2020s, Vlad decided to pay Clockwork a visit and beg for a redo. Clockwork obviously shut this down, explaining that Vlad had plenty of chances to get his act together and failed to do the right thing every single time. Being the petty bitch he is, Vlad decides to throw hands and in the process knocks over the Fenton thermos containing Dark Danny, breaking it and freeing the world's greatest terror from his prison. Yeah, the way he's brought back is kinda anticlimactic, and the first time reading through this book I rolled my eyes, but after rewatching a few episodes for this video, I gotta admit, this checks out. This is a very Danny Phantom kind of move. Vlad immediately folds like the little bitch he is, leaving Clockwork to handle Dark Danny solo, and it goes about as well as you would expect. As in, it doesn't go well at all. And Dark Danny adds another spirit to his collection, absorbing Clockwork just like he did with Vlad's ghost half, becoming a near-omniscient being that's so powerful, yet so unstable, his existence is causing Danny's present-day body to glitch through time, which I guess affects Sam, Tucker, Jazz, and anyone else around Danny when these glitches happen. As if things weren't intense enough, they have less than 24 hours to separate Dark Danny from Clockwork, or else the Ghost Zone will implode. And if the Ghost Zone goes, the human world will cease to exist alongside it. And the rotting cherry on top of all of this, ever since the events of Phantom Planet, Danny's powers have been fading. And Jazz suspects it isn't tied to physical strength, but instead is a matter of the mind. Something that her, Sam, and Tucker want to help Danny figure out together. But talking about your feelings won't fill up 192 pages, so Vlad offers an alternative solution. Plasmius believes that items such as the Infomap, the Crown of Fire, and the Fright Knight Soul Shredder are all evidence of an ancient ecto-energy source that predates even the Ghost Zone. A source that may provide the exact kind of power-up Danny needs. So they head off into an adventure in the Ghost Zone that I don't feel like talking about. We're here to talk about Dark Danny, Go by the Book. Jazz is holding down the fort in Amity Park, rallying the troops as she prepares for Dark Danny's arrival. With the city on red alert, it's only natural that Danny's flirtatious frenemy, Valerie Gray, would step up to the plate and offer Jazz a helping hand. And because her future self was the first character we saw encounter Dark Danny back in the day, it only makes sense that she'd be the first one to meet him in the present, as he doesn't emerge from the portal at Fenton Works, but as Valerie suspects, the portal at the mayor's manor, installed by Vlad during his term in Season 3. And just like in The Ultimate Enemy, Dark Danny breaks through with a ghostly wail. The unstable nature of Dark Danny's fusion with Clockwork, should we call him Darkwork? The unstable nature of Darkwork is clearly taking a toll on his physical appearance. His body and costume literally look like they're cracking, and his face has adopted the scar and sclera of Clockwork's left eye. Darkwork Danny demolishes Amity Park with no remorse, and nothing the Fentons throw at him sticks. But Jazz refuses to give up on her brother in any timeline, and tries to appease Dark Danny, questioning why he would try to spread all of this pain and misery if he truly felt nothing. But he retorts that since they took away his future, it's only fair that he takes away theirs. Which doesn't make much sense because they didn't take away your future, homie. They blew up. They didn't have any say in that. Who wants to die in a Burger King? Clearly, he's a tough nut to crack, and he'd rather be cracking bones instead. Attempting to kill Jack by crushing the Fenton van right before Jazz and Maddie's eyes. Luckily, Valerie swoops in and saves Jack. But when she tries to banish Dark Danny back into a thermos, he uses his newfound power to glitch it out. It really seems as if nothing can stop him. Meanwhile, deep in the Ghost Zone, Danny learns some important ghost lore. Go by the book. And to make a long story short, because ghosts are a manifestation of real human emotion, Danny realizes his fading ghost powers are a result of him losing his emotional drive. His purpose! He wanted to keep his friends and family safe. But now Amity Park has a bunch of other ghost hunters to do just that. And since he now knows that ghosts thrive off emotion, he doesn't want to hunt them. He wants to help them. So as Danny returns to full power, he declares his new mission statement. He's going to heal the rift between worlds, starting with himself. I love this growth for Danny. At the start of the series, he was an immature teenager who gained life-altering powers in an instant. Naturally, he was prone to using these powers for his own selfish reasons, but still had an inclination to help people and keep his city safe. And some of the moments he seemed happiest in his profession were the moments where he was able to reason with a ghost instead of forcing them into a thermos. And it makes sense that ghost hunters becoming a much more common occurrence had an impact on his mental health and sent him into a sort of existential crisis. Given that the mere sight of Master's blasters was enough to push him towards removing his ghost powers in Phantom Planet, his parents getting arrested being the straw that broke the camel's back. Danny's always been a little unsure of himself, but for the longest time ghost hunting was the one thing no one else could do, at least on his level. Now he's rubbing shoulders with his old bully. So with all of this in mind, I couldn't think of a more perfect pivot for the character than to denounce ghost hunting and instead put his energy into ghost helping. And I think it fits the trend of protagonists in cartoons wanting to help people instead of fighting crime, something that became way more prevalent in the 2010s. It's funny, Danny inspired the main character for my adult animated series where the cast helped ghosts with their unfinished business. His name is Dean, isn't he a peach? It's cool to see the inspiration come full circle and take on a similar role. I want to finally start actually making stuff with this series after planning it out for the last 5 years, so keep your eyes peeled for it. Subscribe to the channel and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at OffTrickVox so you can stay in the loop. Alright, enough shilling. Back in Amity Park, Dark Danny continues to destabilize as the glitches spread and affect his battle with the Ghost Patrol. It's clear Clockwork is trying to fight him off like a nasty virus. Our Danny arrives in the nick of time and gives Dark Danny an ultimatum. The choice to stand down and talk things out, or the choice to get his ass kicked. You can guess which one Dark Danny picks. Vlad pulls up to help even the odds, and shortly after, Sam, Tucker, and Jazz arrive with the time medallions from Clockwork's domain, granting them immunity from the time glitches. During this battle, Vlad learns the role he had in creating Dark Danny, while Valerie and Jazz figure out that if they wear Darkwork down, he won't have enough energy to keep Clockwork at bay, and the fusion will fall apart. Everyone works together to make this happen, but Dark Danny refuses to stay down, unleashing the most powerful ghostly wail ever before seen in the series. With the power back in his hands, Dark Danny reiterates that the people who destroyed his life can't have theirs intact. Danny questions why he's so power hungry and so angry, but Dark Danny asserts that he's transcended human emotion. Vlad calls him out on his BS, however, rationalizing that if Dark Danny is the amalgamation of both their ghost halves, then he's undeniably full of fear, just like Vlad. Plasmius acknowledges that his lust for power and complete control is nothing more than a pathetic attempt to stop people from leaving. He acknowledges that the problem with his life is himself, and vows that his purpose is to make amends with those he wronged. With Danny and Vlad both having a renewed purpose, they double team their ghostly fusion and successfully remove Clockwork from his body. And I just gotta say, these panels of Dark Danny saying don't while Clockwork says do it goes hard. My god, I jumped on my seat and did a quick lap when I read this. Having a better understanding of his future self, Danny refuses to seal him away again, but it may be too late. Dark Danny's been outside of the time stream for too long, and his structural integrity has been compromised. Whatever that means, am I right? So Vlad decides to make good on his word to make amends, and offers his body as a temporary vessel, to which Phantom accepts, merging with Plasmius to preserve his own life. But a split is inevitable. In the aftermath of the battle, Clockwork hits Danny with some bad news. Multiple time streams have gotten damaged by Dark Danny's rampage, and if Danny wishes for things to go back to the way they were, he has to choose between two realities. One where everything will go back to where it was, but Danny no longer has his powers, and one where he's erased from the Disasteroid event, meaning no one outside of his friends and Jazz would remember that he was Danny Phantom, not even his parents. The consequences of Phantom Planet would have never happened. Yo, you mean the finale's getting retconned? Let's go! Obviously, Danny chooses the latter, as it's the best way for him to stay true to his new purpose in life. Unfortunately, this means he now lives in a reality where anti-ghost propaganda is at an all-time high thanks to Vlad's attempt at world domination. So Danny Phantom is public enemy number one. But he's not worried, because as long as his friends are by his side, he's ready to take it all on, one day at a time. However, things don't wrap up with a nice little bow. It wouldn't be Danny Phantom without some cliffhangers. Valerie was still in the ghost zone when the reset happened, equipped with a time medallion. So not only does she remember everything that went down, but she's now one of the only few people who knows Danny's secret identity. And elsewhere, Vlad finally gets the son he wanted Danny to be, as he expulses Dark Danny out of his body and into a clone of Danny. Remember those? Like Danny with an eye? Well, Dark Danny isn't one of those clones now, and Clockwork lets him know that if something goes wrong, he won't be able to help. Dark Danny now has his own second chance at life, back at the age where he lost everything. But it's up to Vlad's parenting to determine how he'll turn out. That's not gonna end well, is it? So, was this graphic novel worth the wait? Was Dark Danny's return worth the 18-year wait? To both, I'd have to say, yeah, it was pretty good. Although I only focus on recapping Dark Danny's arc in this novel, a hefty amount of it is dedicated to Danny, Sam, Tucker, and Vlad's adventures with their ghost zone. And it was done in a way that harkens back to pretty much every single Danny Phantom special, especially Rainstorm, The Ultimate Enemy, and Reality Trip. There's a road trip-esque adventure, Amity Park is on lockdown, and the villain is separated from Danny for a duration of the story, until they clash in the highly anticipated third act standoff. Gabriella Epstein really poured their entire heart and soul into this book, doing a flawless job of emulating everything fans adore about the show. If you're a big Danny Phantom fan, then it's not gonna feel like reading a graphic novel. You'll be hearing the voices of the characters, Guy Moon's repetitive score, and the show's memorable sound design. And that's because Gabriella's script and illustrations are packed with so much energy and emotion. The characters are practically jumping off of the pages. Seriously, go buy this book. I can't recommend it enough. there's also a good amount of callbacks to the series as a whole. I mentioned that this novel feels like all the specials Danny Phantom had, but pretty much all of them are referenced too. I was shocked that this felt like a strong follow-up to not just the Ultimate Enemy, but Rainstorm and Phantom Planet as well. Although, depending on how you feel about that last one, you may feel like it got disrespected a little bit. They retcon the hell out of Phantom Planet in this book with 3 changes, 2 of which I dig, while the other I'm kinda iffy on. Of course, there's Vlad surviving the disasteroid, as according to him, he just waited until it passed by Earth before flying back, which is a total contradiction to what we saw in the show. But from the moment I watched this finale as a kid, I hated how Vlad went out with a joke. Like, they built up this disasteroid as a huge threat, something that'll literally destroy the Earth and the Ghost Zone. So if Vlad's gonna get taken out by it, make it a big and dramatic death that follows through on the severity of the situation. Not a silly little moment with the Guy Moon cue. Realistically, if Danny Phantom did get a season 4 back in the day, they would have brought Vlad back somehow. So him surviving would have been an ass pull either way. And I think Gabriella made the right call by just ignoring the fact he got hit. The other retcon that I like, and something the book establishes pretty quickly, is that Tucker is no longer mayor of Amity Park. His term only lasted for 48 hours before he dropped a baby and got removed from office. Yeah, that's a Danny Phantom joke if I've ever heard of one. Tucker becoming mayor at like 15, 16 was such a dumb move, especially because nothing about his character indicated that he wanted to be mayor. And he's a teenager! Throwing that whole development out the window brought me peace that I didn't know I needed. But then there's the third retcon. The fact that nobody remembers Danny Fenton is Danny Phantom again. My homie Offbeat Kiki kinda sold me on the idea a bit by explaining that now, Danny gets to come out to his parents on his own terms. And you know what? I really like that. But it still doesn't detract from the fact that the series is now 3 for 3, with Danny's parents finding out his son is half ghost, only to have their memories erased. The Ultimate Enemy, Reality Trip, and Phantom Planet all have his parents find out his secret identity. And now every single time it's been struck from the record. It's like a running joke at this point. So personally, if they find out for realsies in the future, I won't care anymore. I didn't even love how Danny exposed his identity to the world in Phantom Planet, but I still wanted them to commit. Part of the reason I'm salty about this is that we didn't get to see much of what a world where everyone knows who Danny Phantom is looks like. I mean, we see that everyone is now a Danny Phantom superfan, including Luce and Amity, but how have his relationships changed? It wouldn't sting as much if the status quo wasn't actually kind of dope. Like Dash becoming a ghost hunter and knowing Danny's identity could have been a really cool dynamic. It could have elevated them from the bully and the bullied to friendly rivals who push each other to get better at their craft. I also would have loved to see Danny deal with parasocial relationships and having people all over the world hail him as a savior. How would that have affected his mental health? Would he have an inflated ego or find all of it overwhelming? I guess we'll never know. At least Valerie still remembers. She should have been in the loop eons ago. Oh yeah, ghosts being the manifestation of emotions is technically a retcon to Butch Hartman's insane statement that ghosts are like monsters from another dimensions or some shit.
The ghosts of Danny Phantom's world aren't the spirits of the deceased, as ghosts tend to be in pop culture. Instead, they're monsters from another dimension. I really think the ghost zone wants to be part of the human world, and that's why the creatures there do what they can to look and sound like humans as much as possible.
Trust me, you guys don't want him back on board when this is what he's cooking. So, where do we go from here? Again, the book seems to be selling pretty well, and I'm hoping this video boosts those numbers a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got another graphic novel in the future. That said, in spite of taking away the new status quo Phantom Planet left us with, there's no denying A Glitch in Time ends on an even better note with Danny becoming a ghost helper instead of a ghost hunter. I'd love to see an adventure where he tries to reform his rogues gallery, only for some of them to listen to reason while others push back. Teach him that just because everyone is capable of change doesn't mean everyone wants to. It'd be interesting to see Danny figure out where the line needs to be drawn between helping ghosts and stopping them. At what point does he stop appeasing to their heart, or what's the ghost version of a heart? At what point does he stop appeasing them and decides to break out the thermos instead? The ending also makes it sound like there's going to be a lot more ghost hunters than just Dash, Quan, and Star, as training is going to become mandatory in schools. So I hope we do keep Ghost Hunter Dash, because again, I think there's an opportunity for a really interesting arc, but but it would also be cool if this training actually leads to Sam and Tucker getting more involved with the action moving forward now that they'll be able to properly defend themselves. I know you kinda lose something when everyone's a fighter, but these are Danny's lifelong friends and partners in crime. They can't be vulnerable forever, and at the end of the day, they're still human, so it's not like they're invincible. If anything, it justifies their perpetual plot armor. Last but not least, we have Vlad vowing to do better and keeping Dark Danny around as a son of sorts. I'd love to see where they'd go with this, especially since Vlad is broke. Like, where is bro even going to stay? If Danny's new life is just as crummy as it was when he lost his friends and family, I could see him going off the deep end and stirring shit up again, alongside being a devil on Vlad's shoulder, egging him on to relapse. I could also see Dark Danny plotting to replace our Danny because he feels entitled to his life and his friends. Or maybe he'll just start posing as Danny Phantom, hunting ghosts, saving the day, and taking credit for all of Danny's wins. Which would annoy Danny because not only is this chump stealing his identity, but hunting ghosts instead of helping them would make Danny look bad to all the ghosts he's trying to help. The sky is the limit here, and I'm excited to see what comes next. But as always, these are just my thoughts, and if you picked up this book for yourself, I'd love to hear yours. Drop them in the comments down below. Let me know what you'd like to see next from this new era of Danny Phantom. Shout out to Hats Off Media for the badass Dark Danny thumbnail. Go give some of his videos a watch so he can fund his cartoon screen time. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more nostalgic cartoon content. That's really about it. Animation forever, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace!